discuss the Limpopo conference further, we're joined now by political commentator Thabo Mashao. Thabo, always a pleasure speaking to you. A very good morning to you. Let's talk a little bit about what is currently undergoing in Limpopo province. Obviously, when it comes to this kind of elective conference, it's all building up to the end of the year when we're going to see the power dynamics when it comes to the national conference itself. But let's talk a little bit about the two contenders at this moment in time. One such, of course, incumbent Stan Mathabatha versus Dixon Masemola. We heard there from our reporter Moloko saying that it looks as though the favoured one for this particular elective conference is Stan Mathabatha. But is it too early to tell?
It's always good morning to you, Faith. It's always lovely chatting to you. Thanks for having me. It's always too early to tell. A minute in politics is way, way, way too much. Anything can change. But also you'd remember the fact that the dynamics of an ANC conference are not necessarily reduced to a mathematical equation that you and I can easily make at this present moment. Things change at a go. Delegates are convinced by other delegates and persuasions take place. And in some instances, it has been alleged that even money can exchange hands. So those are some of the few things that affect the ANC conference. So it's way too early to tell. But the way things are going at this present moment, it appears that Mr. Stanley Mathabatha is set to take it. He pronounced his support, you would remember, in the January 8th statement this year, his support for the incumbent President Cyril Ramaphosa. But in this instance, it's the President Cyril Ramaphosa who stands to win. Either way, whichever way the conference goes. Dixon Masemola, on one hand, also is in support of Mr. Ramaphosa, and so isn't that the Mathabatha. So it's a win-win for Mr. Ramaphosa, whichever way it goes. But Limpopo is quite complex. It's got big numbers that can influence the conference a little bit later on in December. But again, the third term issue, if Mr. Mathabatha wins, in the recent history, he will then set a certain tone to those who want to pursue a third term. And also it will bring about, whether we like it or not, in the near future, it might bring about a center of two powers, in that sense that he remains the premier of Limpopo, and he also wants to retain this position. But if he loses, then it would mean that the premier is not the chairperson. It's nothing new, but it always brings about interest in politics.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking about interesting politics dynamic as well as this issue around the third term. I wanted to touch base in terms of this, also the way in which some of these credentials are being handled. This is not the first time the issue of credentials is actually being questioned. We saw that in the Eastern Cape as well. There was a big problem when it came to credentials and having to do Ekurhuleni as well. The same thing comes up with big problems around credentials. This time around is also around bogus delegates, so as it were. So it's like muddied waters. I mean, it's no surprise when it comes to just the political dynamics as well as what is at stake here. But this is supposed to be the African National Congress's opportunity to self-correct, self-introspect, reflect. These are some of the terms that we keep hearing from the ANC. But if we're still discussing issues of bogus delegates, that makes you wonder exactly what kind of self-correcting, introspection, reflecting, renewal is actually taking place.
I think you're asking for too much if you want the ANC to implement any of those. Renewal, self-correction, it's simply not going to happen, not anytime soon. Those are just the wonderful platitudes that are thrown around in the mix and the potpourri of political jargonism. It's got nothing to do with anything on the ground. The ANC is divided and it will remain divided for the foreseeable future and for a time to come. And those are just words that they use in order to throw some advertising and marketing tools to those who are not wary of dynamics inside the ANC. But coming to your question, Faith, the issue of credentials, very important. It's not new at all, I have to confess. Every single person who has been following the ANC politics very closely will know that it's nothing new. In 2012, there were individuals in Northwest Province who were told that they should not even attend the province, as some of them were said to be suspended on the day of conference. The issue of credentials is a huge one because it determines, as it has been explained on this platform multiple times, that it really decides who has the right to vote at the end of the day and who doesn't have the right to vote. And the more you have control on people who have the right to vote as a slate, the more power you have over the entire conference because you can determine its outcome. So it's a highly contested issue, and it resides squarely in the office of the Secretary General, who needs to sort this thing out once and for all. But also, it simply means that there are processes not in place administratively. There are manipulations that continue to take place in order to have a certain outcomes of a province. And if you don't sort this out, you are really not sorting out the leadership problem.
Yeah, I mean, Thabo, also looking at this issue of political elitism, careerism, many would say that it's also around politics of the stomach when it comes to the African National Congress, the amassing of wealth. Stella Matabato was making reference to the fact that this could potentially even be the reason why the ANC collapses because of this kind of opportunism which exists within the ANC. It's not new. It's not a new conversation around opportunism within the ANC. We just have to look back at in the way in which our COVID-19 pandemic was handled within various spheres of government, right? But in this case, right, the collapse of the ANC, should this issue around political opportunism not be addressed, how critical is it at this moment in time? And I want you to forecast in terms of 2024 and where the discourse is sitting in South Africa.
The ANC has tried to deal with this issue through its document, which is called Through the Eye of the Needle, trying to explain what type of a cadre it needs, what kind of an ANC member it needs. If you need to assume leadership at a national level, you need to have served a certain amount of years at a provincial level, and so on. If you've served if you have to be elected at a provincial structure, you need to have served a certain amount of years at the regional structure, and so on and so on. They have put a blueprint in place, but it is the actions that count. One of the leaders to speak articulately about this issue was former President Thabo Mbeki some years ago, when he has said that there are many still who are using the ANC membership card as an access card to opulence, to wealth, and to financial opportunity. The ANC is still seen by many opportunists as an appropriate vehicle to enter luxury, the world of expensive cars, fancy houses, and huge tenders. And many people do not see it as just a liberation organization or a movement or a political party that seeks to advance the cause of South Africans. And that is the demise of the ANC, because by doing that, it's attracting opportunists who are not prioritizing service delivery and the needs of the people. They are prioritizing their bank accounts, they are prioritizing the kind of vehicles that they want to drive. And as a result, issues of policy, issues of documents of the ANC, issues of true change are not dealt with, because it then becomes politics of slates, of leadership, and a conference is just reduced to a leadership contestation, as opposed to a festival of ideas where really policy has to be dissected so that an ordinary South African can truly get to see the proverbial Jerusalem.
Thabo, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for your insights. Political commentator Thabo Mashawu.